In my Pecha Kucha, we're going to be talking about equitable gender representation in elementary schools. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the male teacher shortage, why it's a problem, what you can do to help this problem, and what solutions we can do as a country. In the Moral Code of Ethics, this mostly relates to Principle 1C. Now, look at this picture. What do you see? This is the very first image that comes up when you Google elementary school staff. And in this picture, the number of female educators outweighs the number of male educators by greater than 10 to 1. When looking at nationwide data taken from the federal government, we can see that this trend is not just at that one school. At the preschool and primary school or elementary school level, there is clearly a vast difference between the number of women and men in the field, but this isn't the case for secondary and beyond. Now, why is this a problem in the first place? A study from D.S. McCannis found a positive correlation between male student achievement when they had a male teacher. Now, this doesn't mean they only had male teachers. This study simply meant they had a male teacher at some point. This shows me that role models are important, specifically role models that look like you, sound like you, talk like you, and that you or students can relate to. This is so important in schools, and students deserve to have these role models. Now, I recently read a book called Bias, and in that book, the author came to a conclusion. Biologically, in our brains, they fire differently when we see somebody of the same race as us versus a different race. And it's the same thing for gender. Again, pointing as to why it's so important to have diverse teacher lineups. Now, what happens when boys are starved of these male role models and they don't have them? It has shown that they turn to behaviors like bullying, both physical and cyberbullying is seen here. Also, coming up with stereotypes to help cope with the factors missing in their lives. Now, many schools attempt to hit at this problem by putting up posters all along their walls of male or heroes of color to motivate their students and show them, look, here are your role models, you can make it. But that is not a solution. As I said, that is just hitting the problem. I'm going to draw a connection to climate change here. I have always heard that I should care about climate change because polar bears in the Arctic are dying. But if you tell that to an elementary school student, nothing is going to click in their brain. They haven't been to the Arctic and they haven't seen a polar bear. It's the same thing with posters. It is not going to hit at that level. Students deserve to have in real time, in person, these role models they can look up to every day to show them that if you stay in school, if you commit to this role, then you will have success. School is for you, not only women. Now, what kind of problem is this? Is it society, economic, environmental? Studies from Coulter and McNay found that there are factors from all three as to why men aren't going into this field in the first place. Why are they going into secondary but not elementary? Well, there is a social stigma, and as negative as this may be, being a caretaker of the younger age is seen as a feminine role. And this is inherently going to deter many men or many masculine figures from pursuing this career. For example, look at this classroom. This looks like a fantastic classroom. There is kindness on the wall and rainbow coloring. I see many other colors on the desks, right? This I would describe as a very feminine environment. Again, not a bad thing at all. But if we're looking for diversity, there has to be more. Now, there is also logistics. It is no secret that teacher salary is not high when compared to other roles. Also, when elementary school teachers are advertised, such as anatomy of a primary school teacher, it's often very feminine traits. There is also a positive loop here. I'm going to reference climate change again, as can see in the picture on the left. The more feminine that elementary school becomes, the less males are going to want to go into that role. And it doesn't just have to be males. I'm just talking about masculine figures. Now, let's look at some other perspectives. What do other cultures do? When looking across the Atlantic and many European countries, they still segregate their schools, although this practice is going away. They separate the boys and the girls as to hit this issue, but that has proven to be ineffective. So let's talk about an actual solution. I recently attended a PLC Institute. If your school is not part of PLC, I would highly recommend it. They talked about school culture. We need to make sure elementary school culture is about learning and is gender neutral. We need to focus on the education itself. Now, I'm going to reference this graph again. Notice secondary and beyond. They're much more balanced. And I would argue that most high schools are much more gender neutral than many elementary schools. You're not going to look at an average high school room and see all of these feminine features. There are also external factors. Again, when looking at teacher pay, if teacher pay was to go up, there would be more people applying to teaching positions, period, meaning schools could pick and choose who they hire and purposefully create that diverse teacher lineup that we are searching for. Now, my final takeaways. The male teacher shortage is a real problem that needs to be addressed. There are small steps we can do as educators. There are steps we can do voting-wise, and hopefully, with time, we can get elementary schools to become a true gender neutral and positive learning environment for all students.